Included in the list of the most annoying things in life are sports commentators. Really? They're not that annoying. Hot weather when you're not on holiday. Someone altering your seat height at work. I had to use Mark's car this week because mine's not working. And I got in and he's almost like, I can't reach the pedals, and he's almost laid down. I'm like, you can't possibly drive like this. So I've sat the seat up and pulled it forward. Of course, he then got in it and he's like, Mum, what am I meant to do now? So someone altering your seat. Trying to find the end of the sellotape. Cashiers giving you change on top of your receipt. People who only use the middle lane of the motorway. Paper cuts, one of the 100 most annoying things. People who sniff and don't use a tissue, oh yes. People who walk painfully slowly in the street. I don't so much have a problem with people walking slowly because you can't help it. It's when people just stop dead and start having a conversation with someone and you nearly bowl into them. Especially if you're in the supermarket and you've got a trolley. I have trolley rage. You know, maybe I need to kind of go and have some confession or something, maybe. Leaving a tissue in your pocket and then putting the trousers in the washing machine. Slow internet connections. Toilets you have to pay for. What's the thing that you would put on your list? The thing that drives you mad? The most annoying thing? I think for me, before this morning, the top thing that I find most annoying is people who eat with their mouth open, or people who eat really loudly. I know that's two. But in my defence, if you do one, you generally do the other, don't you? There was a picture on Facebook that said, if I can hear you eating, I've already planned your funeral. I heartily agree that sentiment. It's one of those really strange things. It just drives me insane. And I know it's bonkers. Thankfully, I've never actually resorted to murder yet, but I have thought about it. Today, as we look at the Sermon on the Mount again, that most famous sermon given by Jesus, right at the beginning of his ministry, he's talking about anger. He's talking about those things and those people that drive you insane. And thankfully, he's talking about recognition. So let's read. Did you manage to get through yesterday without murdering anyone? Was it a close run thing, Trish? Sorry, Pete. But no murder was actually committed. Great, tick that box, move on. But actually, when we take a serious look at this passage, it actually hits rather close to home and can make us actually feel a bit uncomfortable at times. So let's have a look. Jesus is up the mountain with his new disciples and with his crowd of people who want to hear what this newcomer rabbi has to say. And he's just told them, because remember, we've broken this down into about 14 weeks it will take us all in all. Jesus said this in one sitting, so what he said last week actually flowed straight into this week. He didn't say them, they're not separate blocks of teaching. We need to remember that, because for us they are. So Jesus has just told the people that he hasn't come to abolish the law and the prophets. He hasn't come to get rid of it, but he's come to fulfill it. And then today's reading is actually a direct quote from the law, isn't it? You've heard that it was said, do not murder. Where have you heard that it was said? In the Ten Commandments. It's not a trick question. It's the Ten Commandments, the law that was given to Moses by God up a mountain. And if we just pause and think about that for a minute, that's really significant. When Moses led the people out of Egypt, when they first became a nation, God called Moses up the mountain and he gave his people the law. Where is Jesus? He's up a mountain. What is he doing? He's giving them the new law. Pretty significant stuff here, that Jesus is saying who he is and what he's doing. And then in the next couple of chapters that we'll look through over the next few weeks, Jesus gives 6 specific statements. And they're actually called, those of you who like to know this sort of thing, they're actually called the 6 antitheses. The 6 antitheses, where Jesus takes a statement. He says, you've heard that it was said. And then he says, but I tell you. Now, it's really important for us to understand as we launch into this, that Jesus is not for 1 minute attacking the Old Testament and the law and the commandments. He's not saying that the law and the commandments are wrong. He's actually attacking the understanding of the law that his hearers had adopted. He isn't saying the law is wrong. What he's saying is your interpretation of it is wrong. And we will look at that more closely as the weeks go on, but it is important to note, Jesus is not at all saying that the law is wrong. He's not coming in to make corrections. This is the second draft sent by God. But he's saying our understanding of it is, the way we are living it out is wrong. And also, take note of Jesus' authority here. Jesus is doing something incredibly bold. You see, at the time, there were lots of rabbis around, just like there are lots of Christian teachers and ministers and stuff today. There were lots of different rabbis, and the thing is, all of us ministers, all of us Christian teachers are trying, with the help of the Holy Spirit, to open up the Word of God, to figure out what message God wants us to hear, and to share that message. That's kind of what I'm trying to do this morning. Okay, I've spent time in prayer, in preparation, in reading, in researching, but ultimately trying to listen and hear from God to pass on that word to you. And the main point of what I'm doing is to point you to God. Not to point you to me, to point you to Jesus, and to encourage you to keep following Jesus. And believe me, there are times as leaders and teachers, as you well know, that we get it wrong. There are times that I get it wrong. There's stuff that I used to believe 15 years ago and absolutely stand on that now I think, God, forgive me for my stupidity. We get it wrong. I'm by no means arrogant enough to believe that I've got, this book and everything in it sussed. And like I found out when I was reading and researching for this sermon series, you read up on a passage, there are as many opinions as there are Bible scholars, and we can't all be right. But look at Jesus here. He doesn't just say, some teachers say this and some teachers say that, but my opinion is, he says, this is what you have been taught, but I tell you. In other words, he says, the other teachers have got some things right, some things a bit mistaken, and some things just completely wrong. But if you want to know what the law really means, if you want to know what fulfillment of the law looks like, look at me. Look at Jesus. He says, I will show you, I will teach you. And he takes a level of authority onto himself that is unheard of. Just imagine for a minute, if you want to get a bit more of the shock factor, imagine if I came in here one Sunday morning and said, for years you have read the Bible and you have heard it said, the Lord is my shepherd, but I tell you I am your shepherd. You'd be like, who do you think you are? That's what Jesus is doing. He said, other teachers point you outside of themselves to God, but Jesus says, look at me, I tell you. And that is huge, huge. So he has these 6 antitheses, these 6 sections of teaching. And he begins with the first one. You have heard it said, you shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister is subject to the same judgment. What? Hold on a minute. I was feeling quite smug a minute ago about not murdering Adrian yesterday. So surely that can't be right, can it? Surely anger can't be as bad as murder. Well, in the eyes of the law, obviously not. Not even nearly. I mean, go outside on the street right now and murder someone, you're going to be in prison for a very, very long time. Go Go out on the street right now and throw a tantrum, you'll get laughed at. Believe me, I know. Go out on the street and have an argument with someone or a fight with someone, and you might get arrested for public order offences and get a fine or a caution. But Jesus says, it's not just about your action. It's not about the external. It's about your attitude. It's about your heart. Because the thing is, unless you're criminally insane, I don't believe that anyone wakes up in the morning and out of nowhere thinks, haven't got a lot on today. Might just go and pop up the high street, murder someone, and then go to gossips for afternoon tea. Well, no sane person, anyway. Murder is an action that builds. It comes from resentment, from jealousy, from bitterness and anger brewing and growing inside. Not all anger leads to murder, but all murder comes from anger. If you like, murder is the external, visible action that comes from your internal attitude. Jesus said, get rid of the anger, get rid of the bitterness, get rid of it before your internal attitude spills out into external actions. Jesus is saying, look, it was never the intention of the commandment against murder that you just simply stop short of actually killing someone, but actually that you should never get anywhere near even wishing that they were dead. Because there are consequences, he says. We will face judgment. Now, I haven't got my booklet in front of me. I've left it upstairs. In the booklet, Jan, what word does it say? The fires of where? Does it say the fires of Gehenna or the fires of hell?
On this?
Yes, on your booklet. It says you'll be in danger of the fires of hell. It says hell. See, because we're using the NIV, we need to understand the word that's been translated hell, because before we get carried away, see, when we read verse 22 there, it's not Jesus saying that if you get angry with someone or call them a fool, then one day at some point in the future when you die, you'll face the fire of eternal conscious torment in hell. That's not what it says. That's what we've made it say. Western Christianity since the Reformation have understood it in that way. That's not how Jesus' hearers would have heard it. Actually, if we go back to the Greek, the word which the NIV translators have decided to translate hell is actually the word Gehenna. Gehenna. Has anybody heard that before? Gehenna. You've heard of Gehenna. Now, Gehenna was a place, a real place, that the people on the mountain that day who were listening to Jesus would have been very familiar with. Gehenna was a valley outside of Jerusalem. It was a godless place. It had a long history of child sacrifice. It was awful. It was a place that the people considered cursed by God. Well, by Jesus' day, Gehenna had become this huge rubbish dump. It was constantly burning, constantly smouldering. It's a foul, stinking, disgusting, hellish place where rubbish was thrown to be burned and got rid of. So this isn't some otherworldly destination. It's right there, visible and stinking, outside the city walls. So when Jesus says anyone who calls someone else a fool is in danger of the fires of Gehenna, he most certainly is not saying that one day when you die, you're going to go to this some other place called hell. He's saying you're in danger of being burned up right now. There are consequences right now. And we know that's true, don't we, if we're honest with ourselves. We even say, we have a saying, don't we, that people burn with rage or burn with anger. And every time you allow that anger to burn inside you, every time you allow it to fester and to grow, you're becoming less of the person that God created you and calls you to be right now. And the danger is that if that fire of anger and bitterness burning inside you gets out of control, it might one day become all that you are. Sadly, I've met people like that. I'm sure you have too. That anger, that rage, that bitterness might one day consume you. Instead, Jesus says, instead of being angry with someone, go and be reconciled. Instead of being in dispute with someone, go and resolve it. Simple, but incredibly difficult. But I honestly believe, church, that we have to grasp this teaching today far more, perhaps, than at any other time in my lifetime. Never, ever in my lifetime have I known our country so divided. And if we think that those lines of division stop outside the church doors, well then, church, we really are fools. The thing is, church, I've got a revelation for you. We will never all vote the same way. And that's fine, as long as you vote. We will stand on opposite sides of the Brexit divide with deeply held convictions. And that's fine. We don't all have to be the same. Church is not a sausage factory where I mould you all into my image. Oh, at the thought of it, 40 of me, I need to lay down. But church, we do have to be salt and we do have to be light. We have to show the world how to disagree in love. We have to show the world that we can unite over our differences, whatever they might be. We have to show the world that we can be that distinctive flavour, that even though we have different points of view, we are still in real, genuine, loving relationship with each other. Don't slip into the world's way of thinking that if you don't agree with them, then they are a fool or an idiot just because they have a different viewpoint to you. That's a dangerous path to be on, church. That path leads to the fires of Gehenna, a stinking, rotten, godless end. And so Jesus says, if you come to worship and you have a disagreement with someone, if you have a falling out with a brother or sister, and that specifically means a brother or sister in Christ, a fellow believer, that's the Greek word that's used there. It's talking about each other. It's about how we behave as a family of believers to be distinctive in the world. So if you come to worship and you've had a falling out with a fellow brother or sister in Christ, Jesus says, well, first go and be reconciled to them. Jesus says that reconciliation is so important, it even takes precedent over worship. It's so important, it even takes precedent over worship. Think about this for a minute. Jesus is on that mountain, talking to people, mostly from Galilee. Galilee is a 3-day journey to Jerusalem and the temple. Is Jesus really suggesting that if you've made that 3-day journey, you've got to the temple, you've bought your animal and you're about to go and make your sacrifice, and you remember that you've had a disagreement with someone, well, just leave your animal right there on the altar for around about a week while you go back, make your peace and come back again? Do you see how important it is? That Jesus will make this huge point. It's called hyperbole, exaggeration, to make a point. This is so important. So important. Reconciliation is so important that it is at the very heart of Jesus' mission. God, in and through Christ, is reconciling all things to himself. We know that. The Bible tells us that many, many times. And if we are people of God, then we are to be people of reconciliation too. If we want to take last week's message of living distinctively seriously, then we really need to grasp this message of reconciliation and live it out. This is radical discipleship. This is putting my desire to be right, my desire to be heard, my desire for recognition far behind my desire for us to live in a loving relationship. I remember once, many years ago, someone was upset with me. Do you know, I can't remember why. I sat there racking my brains. I can't remember why. Probably something and nothing. We fall out over something and nothing in church, don't we? But I can remember the feeling of being really aggrieved. I hadn't done anything wrong. I didn't deserve their anger. And you see, I wanted to be proved right. I wanted to put my point across. I wanted to defend my honour. When you break it down, it was all about me. I'm right. The other person is wrong. She was wrong. I wanted people on my side. That's a dangerous path as well in a church, isn't it? Well, I went to see a really good Christian friend of mine, and she listened to me. And do you know what she said? She said, it doesn't matter who's right or wrong. It matters how you treat each other. It doesn't matter who is right or wrong. What matters is how you treat each other. Now, church, please don't mishear me. I'm not talking about serious stuff here. I'm not talking about abuse. I'm not talking about stuff. We're going to get into that as we go forward in the weeks about loving your enemy. We're going to get into some really serious stuff. This is for someone that you've had a falling out with. This is for a brother or sister in Christ that you've had harsh words with, that you've disagreed with. Do you see the difference? We will get onto the big stuff. And some of the big stuff takes major working through. I'm not talking about that here. What I'm talking about here is two of us had a disagreement, both wanting to be proved right. It doesn't matter who is right or wrong. What matters is how you treat each other. Do you know what I did? I went and I knelt down in front of that other lady and I apologised to her for anything that I had done that had upset her and anything that had broken our relationship. It was hard. Because in my humanness, I didn't want to do it. In my humanness, I wanted to be proved right, but it is more important. It was more important to me to be reconciled to my sister in Christ than to be proved right. And that's what Jesus is talking about here. It doesn't matter who's right or wrong. He doesn't get into the legals. When he's talking about going to court with somebody, he doesn't say if you're in the right or if you're in the wrong. He says settle with them. Be reconciled. Make friends. It doesn't matter who is right or wrong. It matters how you treat each other. You see, this is a huge revelation. You can't both be right, but you could both be wrong. So disagree in love. Church, enjoy debating with each other. It's fun, mostly. I offered to play We'll Keep the Red Flag Flying here on Friday. Silence around the table. But enjoy debating, have fun. But don't let it affect your relationship with each other. Don't fall out with each other. And if you do, because we're all human, well, before you come to worship, before you do anything else, go and be reconciled. Go and make friends again. See, that's part of what it means to be distinctive, to shine like stars, to be salt and light in our communities. So simple, and yet so incredibly difficult. We're going to sing now, My